our daughter, who's just got engaged, and our son just got engaged, by the way, so they better listen to this podcast because it'll help them out.
Yes.
They both just got engaged, and our daughter and future son-in-law were talking about how they've got a code word now for when something's more important to the other person. So like if they were to go, this is really
good.
important to me, you say this word, and I'm not going to divulge their word. That's for them. But I've heard other people say, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you value this thing? So on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you value opening Christmas presents on Christmas night or Christmas Eve, versus Christmas Day? And if you're both a 9, well, then you've got to,
compromise.
You got to compromise.
Gotta
but
figure
if
out the
one is an
compromise.
8 and one is a 2, oh, okay. Well, maybe I'll sacrifice because it's really important for you.
Right. I love that.
Well, and before you even get to that, I was just thinking, I love that, to communicate, to compromise, but there's such a jolt that happens when you first realize what you didn't realize, which is that we really do see this differently. So Amy and I met in Chicago across several years of time. We were both in school, but I'm from Cleveland. She's from Minneapolis originally. And Clevelanders and Minneapolis people see the world very differently. They have different histories. They just have a different mentality. So I think when we first started to bump into those differences, it's that feeling of, oh, I don't like that. I don't like that she sees the world so differently. And how did I miss this? Because I've loved everything about her up to this point. And now, we're going to open up gifts the night before. Like, what? I can't live with that for the rest of my life.
Who does that?
Yeah.
Who would do that?
I cannot live with that for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And you start to stack those up with each other. And Jen mentioned expectations. And how do you prepare for expectations ahead of time? People can tell you, you can read books, you can get premarital counseling, which is super helpful. But until you feel that feeling of, I don't like that.
Yeah.
And if I'm honest, I'm not sure if I like you right now.
Yeah.
Is a really, that's a jolting thing.
It's not what you're expecting when you said I do.
No.
Yeah.
So to be able then even to say, well, that's actually normal to run into
Very
that. Now, let's learn to communicate. And in the midst of our communication, this is what compromise looks like. Like, we signed up to become one, which means I'm going to have to let go of some of what has been my normal forever. And you're going to have to let go of some of your normal. And we're going to make a new normal together.
But I would even say, I think some of the tensions that we first started to encounter was just how we communicated with each other. So it wouldn't even necessarily be an argument, or maybe it was, but we started to realize, gosh, we communicate really differently. So I need time to think, to process, to maybe step away from a situation.
Why do you need time to think? I've already thought it all out. Why can't we just talk about it right now?
Yes.
What are you thinking about?
Yes.
Come on.
And the excitement and the energy and the volume grows, and I start to shrink back even more because I think you're getting too big right now.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, now we're in an argument because we're not communicating well. So I think even to back it up, we found ourselves very different in how we were just talking to each other, and we had to step back and figure out.
And I think one thing with communication, you're right. It's easy to throw out, just communicate and compromise,
Yeah.
So there's, you kind of have to back that up a little bit. And one thing that we've been kind of saying about communication lately that I really like, and I feel like it resonates with people and it resonates with me, is that communication is a skill that can be learned.
Yes.
So you're not just born a great communicator, and you can't look at other marriages and say, well, they know how to communicate. You can learn to communicate.
Yeah.
And it's a skill that we always need to be pressing into and learning more about. On the way here, on the airplane, I was reading a book about communication, and I'm thinking to myself, I teach on communication and I'm learning something from this book. And I know, honestly, the hard part is that I was coming here to communicate. So it was something that I was preparing for. Usually when you're on an airplane, you're watching Netflix or you're reading your own book. And so it takes some encouragement of like, okay, guys, if we want to learn this, it's going to take a little work. And you're not just going to magically be good at something.
Yes.
You're not going to magically, whatever skill that you have to work at it a little bit. And so learning, okay, if we're bad communicators, that means the good news is that you can learn it.
Yeah.
But the hard news is like you're gonna have to make some steps of learning how to communicate. And like this is not a podcast on communication. Maybe we can talk about some general skills, but and there's a million of them. There's so
Right.
many nuances. Like I said, you can be a lifelong learner on communication, but start taking some steps of learning how to communicate, how to listen well, how to voice your opinion, things like that. That a weekend to remember is a good place to start. But there's so many resources to do that.
Well,
but,
and Jen, what I'm hearing you say too, built into that, is you have to unlearn before you can relearn to do the right way. Sometimes we have to back up and unlearn bad habits, things maybe we didn't even realize were bad habits until we started to bump into someone for whom this doesn't work.